House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes blasting both agencies for failing to turn over subpoenaed documents about that anti-Trump dossier.
Everything about this smells. The real issue here is not foreign interference in the U.S. election, but domestic.
President Trump telling the New York Times that the Russia investigation is making the country look bad.
I'm very much for somebody who's younger. I think my generation's got to get the hell out of politics.
Funny hearing Democrats talk about we need new blood, we need new blood. They can go to Keith Richards' doctor and get all their blood changed. They're still selling unpopular ideas.
The president admitted for the first time he has been soft on trade with China. He says he had hoped Beijing would pressure North Korea to abandon its nuclear weapons program.
They screwed him. I mean, how many ways do you have to put it to get it to understand? He tried to work with them, and they haven't done it.
The Vanity Fair begging Hillary Clinton to not run again. Now they're getting huge backlash for it, with subscribers angrily attacking them and even burning the magazine. President Trump is taking delight in the magazine's plight.
Dark and chilly out there on the last Friday of 2017. Welcome to Fox and Friends. Pete and is here with us. Rachel as well. I'm Leland Vittert. Great to be with you. The big guys are enjoying their well-deserved time off.
Of course they are. It's the last weekday of 2017. We've got a weekend, but on Monday it'll be January 1st. So who knows what you're going to find on this program of Fox and Friends, the final 2017 program.
And y'all are enjoying Wisconsin weather here in New York.
Wisconsin, Minnesota weather, it's way too cold.
Wisconsin and Minnesota weather, yes it is. Enjoying, I'll let you put that adjective on there.
No, I'm not
do you enjoy it when it's -10 in Wisconsin?
I stay in. I'm like a shut-in. Once it gets to a certain temperature, I just look at the kids outside and I wave at them playing in the snow. I don't
I feel like
go
this
out there.
set is missing a fireplace.
Yeah, that would be nice.
How about
a
fireplace installed?
Yes, somewhere.
That?
Even if it's one of those just video fireplaces.
You just feel warmer, just getting a row of video.
Of course.
I did the Yule log for the first time this Christmas for like a couple of hours. On the TV, you just turn the Yule log with music.
You don't have a fireplace?
No, I have a fireplace as well. I have two fireplaces going, real and virtual.
I have the fireplace on all the time.
And join us all morning long on Fox and Friends. Thanks for being here. We're going to move on to a little bit of news as well. All right, well, enough is enough. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes blasted the DOJ and the FBI for failing to turn over documents on the anti-Trump dossier.
That's right, and Nunes is now demanding all records be available by next week.
Griff Jenkins live in our nation's capital where there's not a fireplace either. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Leland, Rachel, and Pete. We're going to start the year with a bang on Capitol Hill because this is a very strongly worded letter. It sets a deadline next week for a possible showdown between the Intel Committee and the agencies. Chairman Nunes is slamming the Department of Justice and FBI for failing to produce documents related to subpoenas issued over 4 months ago concerning the so-called Trump dossier, telling Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein in the last line of this letter, quote, "At this point, it seems the DOJ and FBI need to be investigating themselves." Nunes is demanding those documents by January 3rd, along with witness lists. He is clearly frustrated with the agencies for slow-walking his request, and the sentiment is shared on Capitol Hill. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
I understand the frustration because when you sit back and you look at what has happened, the lack of response, Congress has a responsibility of oversight. They have been ignored. They have been delayed. They have refused to send people in to have hearings or to be questioned.
Now, President Trump sat down with the New York Times reporter yesterday who asked about the Mueller investigation. The president telling him that he has confidence in Mueller, saying, quote, "I think that Bob Mueller will be fair and everybody knows that there was no collusion. I actually think it's turning to the Democrats because there was collusion on behalf of the Democrats." That a clear reference to the fact that the dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign. So a lot of shakeup, you may recall, from Bruce Orr to Peter Strzok to Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. And, you know, he's retiring early next year, but they're not done trying to question him. Guys, we will see where this all goes, but it's going to be a very busy week, midweek next week.
Indeed.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Griff Jenkins in Washington. Griff, thank you. Wow, and you do get the feeling that there is perhaps, if there's not something to hide, there's at least an attempt to slow walk things. And we were talking earlier that if there's nothing there, if there is no problem inside the DOJ or the FBI, why hide it? If you don't have anything to hide, you put everything out and say, I'm an open book.
Yeah, especially under this administration. I mean, now when you control the levers of those two departments, ultimately they are independent, especially the FBI investigative bodies. But ultimately, you would believe you would get full compliance. I think it is a reaction of, whether you call it the deep state or the bureaucracy, of embedded career civil servants who still have the grips of power in a lot of these places and don't want to give up all these information. And it is this new Inspector General investigation at the DOJ that has actually, not new, it's been going on for a year, but we're now learning more about it, that forced the Peter Strzok text messages to come out. So there seems to be an independent investigation actually going on, which is feeding the Mueller investigation and creating a problem for that investigation. If there's an ideological viewpoint there, I hope there isn't, but a lot of people fear there might be.
Well, I think you're being really nice when you say they're slow walking. I think there's a cover-up. To me, I look at this and I say there's only one reason why for 4 months you would be stonewalling Devin Nunes and the House Intelligence Committee and not turning this over. And the only reason would be because there must be something embarrassing about how they obtained the dossier and how they have really been going after using the DOJ, using the FBI, using our justice system to go after the president in a really unfair manner. And I'll tell you what, Congress, I have a husband who's in Congress, they are mad. You know, this is the United States of America. This is not Russia. We're talking a lot about Russia. The KGB doesn't have to respond to the American people. These two departments need to understand that they're accountable to the American people. So when you stonewall Congress, you're stonewalling the American people.
Well, it is Congress that is the voice of the American people. We're going to have Representative Rooney out of Florida, who made some news earlier talking about purging members of the FBI and the DOJ, the folks that Pete were talking about. Listen now to Trey Gowdy laying out the case here about how everything is different. FBI handling Hillary Clinton investigation versus the Trump investigation.
What was different about the investigation into Secretary Clinton? The answer is almost everything. I'm not interested in litigating their decision not to charge her. Just forget about that. You can like it, you can not like it. No entity is too big to provide oversight over, and the FBI and the Department of Justice are strong enough and venerable enough to withstand scrutiny. If you have made the decision not to charge someone in May of 2016, before you have interviewed 24 witnesses, before you have interviewed the target of the investigation, then you're going to have to explain how you reached that decision not to charge before you ended the investigation. That's not the way it's done for anyone else in this country. So I want to ask the FBI, did you do things differently in her investigation? We already know the answer. The answer is yes. So then we're going to ask, why did you do it differently in her case?
You know, and I think the president gave an interview yesterday, which we'll get to as well. He's playing this very shrewdly. He's saying, hey, I'm not going to fire Bob Mueller. And I think he's looking into things as fairly as he may or may not, because he understands, to your point earlier, there is no there. There is no collusion. He's reiterated that time and time again. But there is this sense, and an abiding sense, I think just from regular Americans, there's no doubt that Hillary Clinton received a special treatment. If I was an intel officer in the United States Army and did 1/1000th of what Hillary Clinton did with classified or even nearly classified information, I would be in Leavenworth right now.
It's not an if. It is an is, because there are former intel officers, there's former members of the United States Navy, there's former military people, there's former NSA workers, former CIA officers who have served time, who have gone to jail, who have lost their jobs, who have lost their livelihoods because of doing much, much, much less than what Hillary Clinton was accused of doing. And at some point for the Democrats, as you talk to them in Washington, it's almost about the journey, not really the destination. They feel as though that if they can keep Russia, collusion, Mueller, Trump in the same sentence, they don't really care about the verbs between all those words.
Right.
It's a good point. It's a narrative they have to feed no matter what.
Well, I was just saying, you know, the American people didn't, I mean, it's nice getting more of this information that we're getting, as you said, from this independent counsel, proving that Hillary was treated differently, the messages that we saw from Peter Strzok. But the American people knew this. I think that's why she wasn't elected. And by the way, Democrats want to move on from Hillary, which is why Howard Dean says old Democrats need to get out of the way in 2020.
That's light. Listen to Howard Dean.
I think my generation's got to get the hell out of politics, start coaching, and start moving up this next generation, so that who are more, I think, fiscally sane. This young generation's going to pay for that if we don't get the hell out of the way and have somebody who's 50 running the country.
So we've got here's a full screen of some of the top Democrat 2020 contenders. Bernie Sanders, 76, Biden, 75, Warren, 68, Kamala Harris, 53, Sherrod Brown, 65. I think Hillary Clinton, if she ran, would be somewhere in her 70s. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, and that list is not our list. That is Democratic insiders. That's the people who are out there raising money. I don't know if do we still have that picture of Howard Dean that we put downstairs with him with his arm out here? I think that's the picture from the screen. He seems to have, there it is, yes.
Get out of the way.
He has tempered since then, but he has a point. You think about the last 3 times Democrats won the presidency. President Obama, when he won, he was 47. President Clinton, when he ran in 1992 and won against H.W. Bush, he was 46 and Carter was 52. So Dean at least has a point there and perhaps a lesson. And there's so many Democrats that I talk to, Democratic fundraisers and then Democratic strategists who all say, yes, we need younger blood. We just don't know who it is.
Except that the candidate of the young people in the Democrat Party is Bernie Sanders. They love him. I've been to college campuses.
They do.
They absolutely love him. And by the way, they say, the Democrats, that, and Howard Dean alluded to this as well, that he's hoping that they have as many candidates as the Republicans had in their primary. I doubt that will happen because they're just the party of control and rigging and
certainly from the last cycle. But if 2016 is a lesson, we don't know who their candidate will be right now. There could be a sleeper that we're not even looking at right now that people coalesce around quickly. But you're right. We'll see if their process is
Larry Sabato was on a couple days ago saying that the airlines are going to have add more flights into Iowa because there's so many Democrats who want to run for president. With that, Jillian here with some headlines from the morning. Good morning.
Good Friday morning, and we do have some breaking news, guys. So let's get everyone caught up with this Fox News alert. 2 gunmen storm a church in Egypt, shooting and killing 2 cops. It happened hours ago just south of Cairo during morning prayers. One of the gunmen shot dead. According to state-run media, a manhunt is on right now for the other. No word yet on who's responsible, but ISIS has killed dozens of Christians in church bombings and shootings in Egypt this past year, including twin bombings at churches on Palm Sunday. More breaking news, 12 people dead, including a 1-year-old child, after flames swept through an apartment building in New York City. People rushing out of their homes into below freezing temperatures to escape the inferno.
Trying to get down on their own. That's how fast it was moving. People were screaming, and that's how we knew it was trouble, because people were screaming, fire, hell, fire, hell. We knew it was trouble.
More than 170 firefighters worked for hours to get the flames under control. This is the city's deadliest fire in 27 years. New overnight, South Korea seizing a Hong Kong ship for allegedly violating UN sanctions. The country claims Hong Kong transferred oil to North Korea. Meantime, President Trump blasting China for the same thing. U.S. spy satellites appearing to expose the illegal trading. The president tweeting, quote, caught red-handed. Very disappointed that China is allowing oil to go into North Korea. There will never be a friendly solution to the North Korea problem if this continues to happen. And that's a look at your headlines, guys. I will send it back to you.
That's the truth. They're not a part of the solution. They're part of the problem.
Yep.
Jillian, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Well, tax reform. Check. So what's on deck for 2018? What you want on the presidential agenda next?
Plus, Christmas, well, it's over, but the NFL is still playing the Grinch. They'll let players kneel for the national anthem, but what about these jingle bell cleats? Well, they're banned. Seriously?
Wow. Welcome back. President Trump is mapping out his agenda for the new year. So what is on conservatives' wish list for 2018? Ned Ryan is the founder and CEO of American Majority, and he joins us now with more on this. Ned, good morning. Thanks for being here. Okay, so if you're a conservative, you support President Trump, you saw what he did in 2017. That's right. What are you looking for in 2018 to pursue the agenda?
Build the wall. The most important thing, one of the reasons he was elected, Pete, was to build the wall. And I think one of the things that he has to do is say, I'm going to be relentless on this. It's about $22 billion to build that southern wall, 1,000 miles, 40 feet long, 40 feet high. And he has to tell Congress, there is no DACA deal unless I get full funding for my wall. He needs to remember this is one of the top reasons he got elected. He needs to keep appointing Federalist Society judges to every level of the federal bench. And this is important. He has to make sure that they're young, make sure that they're 40-somethings, because, Pete, one of the things that's important to tearing apart the administrative state is putting in conservative judges that are going to curtail it and start to tear it apart. And we talk about draining the swamp. One of the ways that you can do that is putting in these young judges. The other thing that I would like to see him do is put out an executive order in January saying the departments will cut 10% of their staff and spending in 2018. I don't think people understand there are almost 2 million federal employees costing taxpayers $137 billion a year. We could take a 10% cut and people probably wouldn't even notice it. Another couple of things I'd like to see. I want to see him close that carried interest loophole. It was one of his big campaign promises. It is egregious. It is fundamentally unfair. It could save up to $180 billion over 10 years, and he can do it without Congress. He can do it through an act with Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin, through Section 707 of the tax code. I would like to see him do that as well and say, we're not going to give those fat cats this loophole anymore. It is unfair. We will not tolerate it anymore.
And Ned, you said there's one more place you'd like to see funding completely cut from.
That's right, Planned Parenthood. I would like to see him go after funding for Planned Parenthood. There is no reason that Planned Parenthood should be getting $550 million in taxpayer dollars when a significant percentage of Americans, myself included, find the killing of unborn children egregious. Cut funding for Planned Parenthood. Pete, I'd throw in something else, too, that he can do without Congress. Declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. If he were to do those things in 2018, when I think Congress is going to be a little hesitant to do some of the big items, that would be, to me, a great list of things if he could pull all those off.
The first item on your list, building the border wall, you're right. It was one of the biggest reasons why people voted. Where's the inflection point? Where's the moment where this happens?
Well, I think it's this whole debate over DACA. You know, I heard Mitch McConnell saying that he thinks he's going to bring that to the floor in January, and Donald Trump has to say, we will not have a DACA deal unless you get me full funding for this southern wall. And so I think it's going to be in the first couple months of 2018 where there's going to be a huge debate over what's happening in regards to DACA. And this is where Trump draws a line in the sand and says, nope, we're not having this conversation unless you give me that funding.
No, I think that's an important point. Full funding. Washington loves to say initial funding, and then they never fund it completely. It's got to be full. Ned Ryan, I think you've got the pulse of what Trump voters are looking for in 2018. We appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Well, Vanity Fair apologizing. They're apologizing now. This is not a joke. For suggesting New Year resolutions for Hillary Clinton.
Take up a new hobby in the new year. Volunteer work, knitting, improv comedy, literally anything that'll keep you from running again.
It was about the lightest touch criticism we've seen in a long time. Well, Tomi Lahren has a message for the magazine. Get a backbone. Well, I think she'll say even more than that. She's next. Plus, remember the college professor